As two practicing physician assistants, we've seen a lot and we've heard a lot. We know that you've heard a lot too. We are here to help you navigate through the BS by having open and honest conversations with other practicing professionals. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Heidi, and welcome to Mindfully Woman. Hello and welcome back to our very first topic episode. Again, we're your host, Heidi and
Cassie.
And we're really excited to have you guys with us today. We are going to be talking about what it literally means to be a healthy woman and dive into preventative measures, lifestyle habits, things that you can do every day, every week, every month of the year to make yourself a healthier woman.
Yeah, and it's such a loaded topic, and depending on who you talk to or what they've been through, you get all this different advice. And then we definitely know podcasts and social media and the news and the fad diets and the magazines and the celebrities. It can get extremely confusing and it's easy to feel lost in the weeds and trying to figure out what's right for you. So hopefully we can shed some light, not saying what we say is the gospel by any means or that it is specific to you, but just some kind of general guidelines for what we tell patients and what different cancer societies say and just different things to help reduce your risk overall.
Yeah, this is literally what we do probably, if not every day, every single week. If you listen to the first episode, you know that we're both PAs and we work in breast care. So obviously like breast cancer, breast care topics are like super important to us. And we educate women every day about like, what can you do to be healthier? What can you do to reduce your risk of a breast cancer coming back? And just be as good as you can with all the information that you hear out in the world. Like Cassie just said, like social media, the internet, diets. There are literally
so many,
1,000 diets out there, like vegan, carnivore, keto, low carb, calorie counting, all of the Mediterranean, eating
cleansing,
great fruits only, like eat bananas for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I was talking to Cassie earlier. There was a survey that I saw online, and it was by this company called Love Fresh Berries. I think they make like strawberries and blueberries and all this stuff. But they did this survey in the UK of 2,000 people that were there, like both women and men. And they concluded that over the course of somebody's life, the average person tries 126 different fad diets in their life.
That is so insane.
I know.
So how much time do you think like in their lifetime that takes up?
A lot, actually. Good question. Because then I looked into like women and how how does that relate to women and like how many women, because, you know, as a woman, it's a big thing we're always thinking about. I saw various different articles about this, but there were anywhere between a woman spending 17 years plus of her life dieting.
So insane.
That's just dieting. That's like years and years and years of doing different types of diets in their lifetime, which is crazy.
Yeah.
How many diets do you think you have tried in your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I have no idea. I know I go in waves of, okay, I'm going to get like really fit. I'm going to do this or that. I don't know necessarily about fad diets, but I'd 5 or 6 probably.
I agree.
And those have been like months to years at a time.
Yeah. And we're not like old.
Yeah, we're really
young.
Pretty young. So
I like to think so.
Yeah.
I like to think we're young.
Yeah, because I don't feel like you really start thinking about your weight until you become a teenager, really. And so because then like body image and insecurities start happening so much, and then you're very aware of, oh, maybe I'm not eating right, or
and when you're a teenager going into then like your early 20s, most commonly as somebody that age, your metabolism is that of like a horse, you know, like you can eat
like
whatever you want.
All-time high.
And then mid-20s hit and you're like, oh, what has happened?
Yes.
I can't eat cheeseburgers every day of my life.
Right. Well, even now, like very late 20s, 30s, I feel like we both have been going through a change of how do I stay where I'm at? Not even lose weight per se, but just stay where we're at. And we have lots of conversations about
every day. We talk all the time.
Like,
about
what are you
diets.
doing? How do you feel? How does this, when we have a drink, how does this make us feel when we eat this or that? And so it's insane how much your body changes and your nutrition and activity levels have to change too for where you are at in life, your age, your hormonal status, your activity level, your functionality level. So there's so many factors that go into actually being able to lose weight or, if anything, maintain.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think generally, like, what we tell our patients and people that we see every day, or what we even talk about to each other all the time, is about, okay, like, what foods make me feel good and what foods make me feel terrible. And we always talk about like nutrient dense foods, trying to eat as like organic and holistic as you can. So carbs, let's just kind of like start with carbs. Like, there's good carbs and there's bad carbs. We all love good, or we all love bad carbs.
Yes,
not everybody seeks out the good carbs. But it takes so much more for your body to work to break down good carbohydrates, which is, you know, what is grown from the ground, what is holistic, like, you know, bananas, apples, fruits, sweet potatoes, even regular potatoes, if you make them right, are good, versus avoiding like inflammatory carbohydrates and processed carbs like the breads and pastas and cookies and treats and sweets.
Are all breads and pastas bad carbs though?
Not all of them are created the same. That is a great question. So no, I do believe there's whole grain options, which is, you know, more for your body to break down. So like doing like a whole wheat pasta, or there's even now things like chickpea pasta and protein pasta, which are a lot healthier options, I would say, versus getting like the standard box of like the enriched pasta that has been around forever.
That's what I've always heard, like trying to avoid the enriched pastas and breads or bleached.
Yes.
Because then that means that essentially they've been processed. They've been broken down.
You're stripping like everything away from it that had like the most essential nutrients to it, like all the good vitamins and all the good minerals and all that stuff as well too. So just, you know, trying to eat as healthy as you can. Now, everybody is different, so this is not like to give guidelines on how many carbs a day like you should eat.
That's
but
slippery slope.
Slippery slope. And maybe one day we'll get into that more with a dietitian. But in general, just like focusing on choosing wisely, being cognizant of what am I eating? Is this better than this? On that point, this is not a sponsored ad, but I love the Yucca app, or Yucca. I don't know how you say it, but it's Y-U-K-A. Yes. And you can scan things in the store. So you can literally scan, like, let's say, for example, you really like rice snacks, which my husband does. He is like a rice snack fanatic and he's very healthy. But we scan that and we see, okay, how healthy is this? The ones he actually likes that are flavored are not that great for you. But the app then gives you recommendations on what would be a healthier alternative.
Oh, I didn't know it gave alternatives.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
And it shows you what types of additives are in that food.
Okay.
Too.
And that app too, doesn't it compare with like what's banned in the UK?
It shows like in Europe what has better regulations than maybe what we're seeing, at least at this current point in time, in the United States. So yeah, it gives you a lot of information on like the exact additives and what they do to your body and like why they've been banned in Europe. which I think is fascinating because then it gives you the freedom to be like, oh, like I really like having a snack, or like I maybe really like particularly like rice snacks or something like that, but I want to have a healthier alternative for it. It's nice because then you can be like, oh yeah, I'll eat these instead.
Yeah. I'm so happy that they've come out with apps like that, because I really think it changes the way that you look at food and what you're actually ingesting. I feel like there's so much more research coming out now that, oh, X, Y, and Z also actually can cause cancer or increase your risk of cancer, or a known allergen, known endocrine disruptor, things like that. So it's super helpful that we can, in one place, kind of, can actually scan items right in front of you and then make decisions based off of that.
I know. And I think more and more will be coming out. Like, I think
so too.
You're just setting the standard now. Now, in terms of, do you have to pay for those? Maybe. Right now, there's a free version of it, which is what I use. I don't pay for it. I think if you do pay, you can get more like information.
You, like, search things or something and not just the picture?
Yeah, like if you like a particular brand of yogurt or something, you can type it in and search it versus scanning it only. That's the only feature I think you can do on this one.
And you can do, which we've been on quite the journey, Heidi and I, your skincare products and your hair care products. See if it's causing your acne, like if it does it actually have an irritant that is causing this and that issue. And so that has been quite interesting. Yeah.
Agree. Okay, so we talked a little about carbs.
Yes.
What do you think about protein?
I love protein, but it's hard to actually, well, I guess I shouldn't say it's hard, but it definitely takes some thought to get enough protein. And what the standard guideline for, or standard recommendation for protein is 0.8 grams or 0.7 grams of protein per kilogram.
Yes.
But if you want to do more of a high protein diet, and more like fitness folks I've seen a lot lately, is more 1 gram of protein per kilogram. And so of like your ideal weight.
Yes. Yeah. So like the standard calculation is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight is the absolute minimum amount of protein that somebody should have in a day. And that's a whole calculation because, normally in the US we measure in pounds. We don't use like the metric system.
Yeah.
And so you have to do the whole calculation versus, like you said, I think fitness people who are more cognizant about their exercise and are more active and live an active lifestyle,
want to build muscle
would do, I think it's more 1 gram per ideal body weight in pounds. So like, let's say I want to weigh 120, not realistic for me, but if I want to weigh 120 pounds and that was my ideal body weight, then I should shoot for getting 120 grams of protein in a day.
Yeah.
If I'm lifting, active, being on top of working out and stuff and staying active.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of different protein sources out there. It doesn't have to just be it doesn't have to just be turkey and chicken. You can utilize legumes and beans, and I love protein shakes. I tend to root for the vegan protein options. Usually it's more pea protein, but I just personally don't like whey protein. Whey is more dairy based, but
I do not like the way it tastes. It tastes like plants, like literally like grass.
Well, that's where I don't like whey because it's like a little too sweet. It's a little too much dairy, and I love milk, but something about it is just a little too sweet for me. I generally tell patients to stay away from the soy proteins. And I think it might be an old wives' tale because we've looked into it before, but the thought is that soy can stimulate or mimic estrogen essentially, but we have not found, right? Like we haven't found any studies that actually back that up.
Yeah. There's no studies that say really one way or another. It's more of like a theory.
Yeah.
And so in general, I think we work with a breast surgeon who recommends not using it just because of like regular use of soy products because of the potential risk.
You have to ingest a lot of it.
Yeah, I think like, let's say, I don't know, let's just talk about, I guess, like a vegetarian or something, and maybe they eat tofu.
Yes.
Like a lot. I think for them, I would be a little bit more like, maybe we should think about adding some different sources, like a protein powder, chickpeas, you know, it's like different versus just only sticking with like a soy product. But I still think it's a great source of protein.
I agree.
In moderation.
I think it's really hard to find actually soy-based protein powders, or I haven't seen one in a long time, but I know that they do a lot of like soy crisp, like protein bars, or like you said, tofu. I actually had a patient not too long ago. She was high risk for breast cancer and she's strictly vegetarian. And so she eats a ton of tofu. And I told her, I was like, you know, there's not any confirming data on this, but it is a theory that it can. And she was having a lot of breast pain and such. And I told her, like, you know, maybe you should cut back on the tofu and try incorporating other sorts of protein.
Yeah. Also, more power to them. Sure. I cannot eat tofu to save my life. It tastes terrible to me.
Yeah.
I wish I could. I guess maybe I don't really know why I would need to because I'm not a vegetarian, but
I haven't had it in a long time.
So I think it has to be seasoned like just right. Like you really have to work on the flavor profile of tofu because otherwise it just tastes like nothing. It's just like a block of nothingness.
Yeah, no thanks.
But yes, I agree. The protein is important.
Yeah. And something we always tell patients too is it's super important for recovery. So everybody thinks, oh, if you're lifting weights, but it's actually super important for recovering from an illness, from surgery, from if you've had just a really bad illness or a really bad like stressful event in your life, it actually can help you overall recover from that because it is quite literally the building blocks of our bodies.
Yeah. And like we think a lot medically, you know, we work in a surgical specialty. So like wound healing and like recovery from surgery is a huge thing. So we always are very adamant about protein before surgery and during the perioperative and post-op period. But even like if you think of like the average woman, I personally feel like I talk to so many women every day that are not meeting their protein goals. No. Or they're like, oh, yeah, maybe I have like 50 grams of protein in a day. And then I talk to them so much about how that can play such a huge role if they're trying to lose weight, because weight is also then that secondary topic and they're not lifting, they're not working out. And if they would bump up their protein, bump up their activity level, they could burn so much fat by building that muscle as well. And I think that's a huge thing people just either don't make time for or just kind of disregard.
Right. Yeah. And we deal with a lot of postmenopausal women. And so working out, and you don't have to be a crazy bodybuilder by any means. I always tell patients, grab 5 pounds, something to put resistance on your muscles, and then eat your protein because then you can actually build a little bit of muscle and then you're burning calories as you sit here. Your muscles burn way more calories than what your fat does.
Yeah.
And so, when you go through menopause, you no longer have the cycling of your hormones, and your hormones are a huge part of weight management. You have your calorie burning side, and then you have your hormone side that controls your weight management. And so whenever you go through menopause, you no longer have that hormonal side. So then it's a lot of trying to figure it out and what works best for you. And I do find the women who exercise regularly, incorporate weights, and then eat a lot of protein, they tend to do the best.
So we've talked a lot about protein, but I think a lot of women get stuck on how they can integrate it into their diet. Like, what are some sources that we can use? How can they eat it every single day of their life? You touched a little about protein shakes and meats and whatnot, but I guess like particularly if you had to give somebody an example of like a day or how they can incorporate it, what would that look like?
So I really try to focus on a decent amount of protein in the morning. And so if that means a protein shake, because sometimes it's just a busy morning or we're going into surgery or something, I like protein shakes. I like protein waffles. Or there's like these egg sandwiches that is just, it's egg, turkey sausage, and cheese. And I like that. Cottage cheese is fantastic. Greek yogurt. So I'm more of a breakfast food person. So
yeah,
if I can do more of that, and I don't always eat that for breakfast, but
just examples.
And I know a lot of people like the overnight oats, and you can add a lot of different stuff to your overnight oats.
You could do protein powder in them.
Yeah, that's what I've seen a lot. And I don't know, I don't do overnight oats, but do you put like Greek yogurt in that?
You can. Yeah. Some people do. Well, that's kind of how I think some people make overnight oats with like Greek yogurt, which is packed with a good amount of protein.
Yeah.
Like I think the standard size of a Greek yogurt has about 12 to 18 grams of protein, which is a good amount. And then you were talking about like protein shakes. Do you have like favorite protein shakes or powders? Because I feel like protein shakes could go either way. Like you could do a pre-made shake, which preferentially I think Premier is a really good one. I don't drink it anymore because it makes me feel a little bloated, but it has a good amount of protein and it's really low sugar. So there's like 0 sugar. And I think there's like 20 plus grams of protein in one of those. And then I know you do powders, right?
I prefer powders. I've never done the like cartons, like the pre-made cartons. I currently am on a kick with Pro Mix. I really like it because it has very little ingredients. Like there's literally 3 or 4 ingredients on the label, and there's no added sugar. So it's not nearly as sweet, but that doesn't bother me. And so I'm currently on a kick with Pro Mix. I have done like Orgain in the past, and that one's good. I always just try to do the least amount of ingredients possible. And also, if I can get 0 added sugar, that is ideal for me. And so now it's mandated on the nutrition labels to say how much added sugar is in each serving. And so that's something I try to pay close attention to, because it's easy to rack up calories from that added sugar. And you think you're doing a good thing with your protein shake, and it's like whoa, there's 5, 10, 15 grams of sugar in this one serving. It could get outrageous pretty quickly.
Yeah. Or even if you make your own shake or your own like a little concoction, then you control the protein powder. Like say you just try all different types of protein powders out there and you do a scoop of protein powder. There's 25 grams protein roughly. And then you can add sweetness by doing like half a banana or a whole banana, and then get your greens in there and throw a whole handful of spinach, and like there's breakfast, and you got a serving of fruit and a serving of vegetables, and you're probably going to be full until lunchtime.
And there's a bunch of different recipes too that I have found that you can incorporate the protein powder into your mix. Yeah. Like I've made my own granola bars or peanut butter bars and different things like that. And you just put in a bunch of like protein powder, and that's a way to get protein. Another source is hemp seeds. Oh yeah. And that actually has a decent, it's like 12 or so grams of protein in a serving. And so that is another, like usually a more natural, but it's vegan source of protein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking a lot about like grams, like we keep saying like these grams of protein. There are so many sources out there. Like you can look online, you literally Google like how many grams of protein is in like 4 ounces of chicken. And I feel like roughly, like if you think about like chicken and turkey and all those, if you think of like the size of your palm, which like 3 to 4 ounces is a typical portion size, and it'd be the size of your palm, it has 7 grams of protein just in that in and of itself. And that's roughly equivalent, but you can, look that up online, get a little measuring scale that comes in ounces and grams at home. And then you can measure out. That's what I do. Like for lunch and dinner, we measure out how many ounces we're having. So I know, like roughly my, 5 ounces of chicken is going to like have somewhere around, 30 ounces or 30 grams of protein. So yeah, you think about doing like a protein shake for breakfast. There's a good amount of protein there. You do like a chicken and some salad or greens for lunch. There's a good amount of protein there. You basically plan all your meals around protein, and the rest will follow. Because then dinner, then you eat, turkey or beef or chicken. And when I say beef, I mean lean beef, not fatty beef, chicken, or even egg whites and eggs. Or if you're just not into that and you want to do vegetarian, use yogurt again, or another protein shake, what have you. There's so many options.
So many options. And that's where the internet is beautiful. There's seriously so many different. It's just beautiful. There's so many different recipes out there for whatever you're into. And I feel like there has been such a push lately to do protein.
Yeah.
And so you can find something out there.
And we agree with that, I would say. Like, as we've talked about, obviously.
Yeah. I have seen something recently that said, like, make sure you just eat your protein first. So then you don't, like, if you're full by the end of your protein, at least you got your protein in. You're not filling up on just a ton of carbs. Even if those carbs are vegetables, which are delicious and they have a lot of nutrients. But at the end of the day, the protein is going to be more beneficial, especially if you're taking a multivitamin.
Yeah.
But anywho.
With the whole protein talk, I kind of want to segue into maybe some of the things you should avoid. So we know that protein's great. It's wonderful. But there are also protein sources that might not be the best for you. So particularly when I think of that, I'm thinking of like the deli meats, the things with a lot of nitrates and nitrites. Typically a lot of pork products like bacon, ham, they are very salty and they normally are quite processed. So things to typically avoid. Also, some of those things like deli meats have been proven to have like carcinogens in them. Yeah. Salami, like the pre-made so like
it's so
meat
delicious,
sticks. Yeah.
It makes it so delicious.
Yeah. And they're very inflammatory too because of the stuff that they have in them. So
when we say inflammatory, that is actually something huge for cancer. And so the ideal goal is to have the least amount of inflammation as you can, because the more inflammation you have in your body, the more upset your cells are and the more likely that they are going to mutate and change.
Yeah.
So if we can change our diet to be less inflammatory, hopefully then the better outcome or the better or the least chance that we will develop a cancer. Or that's the goal, at least.
Yeah, that's the goal. And, we don't have all the answers of what's going to happen to somebody in their particular life. And we just try our best to reduce risk.
Total mystery.
So those are inflammatory meats. We talked a little bit earlier about inflammatory carbs, like the cookies, the breads, the biscuits, like all those things that taste good in moderation, which is minimal. They're okay, but like eating them every day, like day in and day out, also inflammatory. Those meats we talked about are inflammatory. Even some of the fat and the oils that we cook things in, like vegetable oils and canola oils, very toxic, I would say, to like your arteries, and they can also cause a lot of inflammation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a couple of things. When she says that, or I'm assuming when you say like that these carbs are inflammatory, it's because of the processed sugars.
Yes.
And also a huge spike in our glucose causes a lot of inflammation. And especially chronic spikes in our glucose can cause a lot of inflammation in our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of just trying to explain that a little bit more. And then, just from an overall process standpoint. So with all of the different enriched white breads and even some, I think there's like enriched whole grains or wheat breads and things like that.
Yeah.
They're just so processed and stripped of their nutrients. And then they can cause a lot of disruption in our bodies because we just don't digest them properly, or we almost break through it too easily that we just don't get as much from it.
Yeah, it's low in its nutrient level. So it's like adding nothing to your life, essentially. Like you're eating more bad than you are getting good from what's going in your body with those types of foods, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say is about the fat or the different meats. I have found that, it seems that, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, keto, it's fantastic. But a lot of people take it as, I'm going to eat a lot of bacon and I'm going to eat a lot of sausage and things like that. And those are heavily processed meats and super fatty meats. So it's actually not good. It's actually not good for you and not sustainable. You put yourself at higher cardiac risk and then also cancer risk as well. And so I know people do it for years and it's possible, but I don't know. I guess I'm just curious to see like down the road with that fad sort of being over, what that'll look like.
Agree.
But yeah, you got to watch out for that. Pork is yummy, but you do have to watch out for how much fat is actually in that.
Yeah. And there are good fats out there.
There are good fats.
So we're talking a lot about bad fats, but there are really good fats that you should have in your life too, because they help protect your brain. They do help with inflammation too. Like when we think of good fats, we're thinking of things like extra virgin olive oil, regular olive oil, avocado oil, salmon, also a protein source that we missed out on earlier, but like salmon and like healthy fish, tuna is a good one too. All those like different fish oils are a good thing to consider adding too. And they can help even with some of the inflammation, cognitive function, memory, protecting your joints. Yeah. I take inflammation in the joints. Like that's a huge thing.
I take a fish oil tab or capsule every night and it helps my joints significantly.
Yeah.
And it can help with cardiac
risk
too.
Yeah. Especially if people have like an elevated lipid panel and things like that too.
Yeah.
So
So we went all in depth with the different nutrients,
the macros
and macros, and we do it out of love.
Yes. Yeah.
Because your diet and what you put into your body is huge. And so that does play an overall that's a huge factor that goes into your risk of cancers and also different comorbidities. So like your heart, your brain, your endocrine system, so many different things like that. So it's worth paying attention to. I know it's really easy to just eat whatever you want and get whatever's quick and cheap, but in the long run, you're going to pay for it so much more. And so that's why we really could talk forever.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do talk forever and daily about it because we're both so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And we try to live by example. Guilty. We like our snacks, but
we like our snacks. And particularly one thing we haven't talked about is alcohol.
Yes.
So I know that that's a huge thing people like to include in their lives. And we are going to be completely transparent and honest with you. We do enjoy a beverage now and then.
Yes.
It's something that I think a lot of people work on. And we know that it is tied to a lot of health issues. And back to the inflammation, that dang inflammation that causes so many issues and can cause cancers and issues in the body. Alcohol is another big one that
well-known,
well-studied. Yes, well-studied to cause issues. And there are standard guidelines out there on what you should or should not have for a week. I think most recently there was like a newer study that came out that was even less alcohol per week. I think it was supposed to be like 5 drinks maximum a week for women.
Yeah.
And maybe 7 for men or maybe something like that. But what it used to be was 7 drinks a week for a woman. And then I think men were 14.
Yeah, because different countries have different guidelines for alcohol. And I think the US is looking to change their recommendations to be less than what it has been, which will end up equaling out, less than 1 drink a day for women. For
a woman particularly. Since we're talking about women, we'll just stick with the women.
Yeah. And you can't take that and be like, oh, well, I'll just drink my 5 drinks to Saturday night. No, that's actually much worse.
We are not recommending that.
We are not recommending that. That is technically binge drinking, and that actually puts your body through a lot more stress than just having your 1 glass of wine a night.
Like it literally disrupts your DNA and like causes an alteration in the way that your DNA acts and is. And that's with, I would say, regular, consistent use, not just having like a drink on the holidays and you like never drink throughout the year. Like if that's fine. But it's finding a fine balance. And also, it really doesn't make you feel the best when you're drinking a lot of alcohol. And so you'll get better sleep, you'll feel better, your mood will stay stabilized, you'll not struggle with weight so much if you limit your alcohol as well too. So I think that's a big thing that people should be aware of.
Yeah. And really it comes down to all in moderation. It's not great to cut out something completely. Of course, though, yes, ideally cut out drinking. But if you do enjoy a beverage, then that's fine. It's not gonna hurt you, but it's whenever it is a chronic use.
Yes.
Like anything.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about that, what goes into our body and what we're doing all the time. I'm not going to touch on it like super long, but a little bit about exercise, because then that's like the other factor that's important to like then combating, okay, like this is what we eat. How are we going to also stay active for our own heart health, our muscle health, and also to help us like lose weight and stay metabolically active as best as we can. I don't know what you probably tell your patients the same thing. We have a template that we actually use with some of our patients, but in general, like the recommended amount of activity that adults should even get, this isn't just women, but 150 to 300 minutes of moderate activity a week is what's recommended. Or you can also do 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous activity a week. So that can be a combination of cardio and strength training, which is typically what I recommend, because you need that cardio just for your own like heart endurance and vascularity, and just to make you like also stay as healthy as you can. But strength training, definitely, I say it's for women particularly too, at least 3 times a week, and like hitting all your muscle groups. And like you can couple those up on those days. Like let's say you do like Monday, you're doing like chest, shoulders, and triceps. And then Wednesday, you're doing back and biceps and your abs. And then Friday, you do legs, like definitely hitting all those body parts in a week. And that's like ground zero. That's like just starting out, like getting that in there as well. But I do think like strength training, weightlifting, and staying active in cardio is huge. And that's a big part too of staying healthy and coupling your diet with your daily lifestyle and being active.
Yeah, absolutely. And that doesn't mean that you have to like go into a gym. I feel like that's really overwhelming, especially if you start from the ground zero. You've never really done a lot of conditioning, or you weren't in sports growing up, or so it can be quite overwhelming. There are a lot of great apps out there, and a lot of different resources, even on YouTube. I think like you can get them for free. You've done some of that, haven't you? And
there's literally one. It's
different apps.
I think there's one. It's called Yes to Next, like YES, the number 2 Next. And there's so many different levels of activity. And this is like a woman. It's like an older woman and then a younger woman, and they do different levels of activity. The younger woman's a little bit more advanced, and so she'll do more like body training and like strength training that's a little bit more intensive. And then her mom does like lower level stuff like on a chair.
That's nice. So they're like obviously a different ability. They have different abilities. So then they can show
and that's just a free video on YouTube. But like you said, there's like Apple, Fitbit, all the stuff that if you can find as well.
Absolutely. I see a lot of stuff too on like respecting your rest days as well. Like if you need rest, listen to your body, but also don't take advantage of your rest days and like
just only rest.
Make multiple rest days, because that's also lovely. But
or do like yoga, like stretch. Really
know? Yoga's fantastic, and it can be utilized on your rest days because stretching is so important. I admittedly hate stretching, and I'm really bad at it, and I hurt a lot more. I definitely know
like, that is not how it's supposed to feel.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm with you though, Heidi. Like I do enjoy mixing up the cardio and the weightlifting. It really depends on the work day and the availability and trying to work it into the schedule. But I usually like to do like long cardio days, and then now lately I've been going to the gym, lifting some weights, and then sitting in the sauna for like 20 minutes, and that kicks my butt. I come out so beet red, so sweaty, and I've been then doing like 5 minutes in the steam room too, and I am drenched. And so
I feel like one of these episodes we should talk about like benefits of heat therapy and sauna and maybe red light, because I feel like there's so much coming out about that. I don't really know as much about it, but I think it's like really helpful.
Yeah, it's like great for. This is just like very
off the cuff,
like high level. I don't even know. Just things that I've heard. I don't know how true it is. I don't know. I haven't looked into studies or anything like that. But just it's really great for your heart, for your cardiovascular health. It's really good with like I don't know of like detoxing, I guess, because you're just
inflammation,
you're just sweating a bunch. Yeah, and I have heard that it's better to do the red light therapy. Like the red light therapy is better for detoxing, and I know that
I've heard that too.
So I think it would be interesting to actually look more into that. But I can tell you my heart is pounding when I'm sitting in the sauna.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I've been enjoying that just because, and honestly, too, it comes down to what you like and what you're actually willing to do, and what you're willing to do and what you would stick to. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, I have to get in 3 days of weights and I just absolutely hate it. If you hate it, don't do it.
Agree.
Like, you gotta do what you're realistically going to stick to.
Yeah. And then with all that too, like, you'll sleep better. Like,
yes. Oh my gosh. Sleep is so huge. And that's a whole nother topic we could really dive into, because if you're not sleeping well, your body is not functioning properly.
No.
And then in turn, inflammation.
That dang word keeps coming back.
I know. This word keeps coming back, and it's been proven.
Yeah. Sleep is so important. You know, everybody's a little different, but roughly like that 7 to 8 hour window would be ideal, you know?
Yeah.
Recovery, inflammation, all the things.
All of that. I know I've been seeing a lot of people say like the 5 a.m. club. I don't know. I'm not one for the 5 a.m. club, and I don't know any truth behind that. But
doesn't work for me.
If it works for you, it works for you.
Maybe I'll try again one day. But obviously, we could sit here and talk forever about all this stuff. Yes. And I definitely think we'll deep dive into some different things down the road, like the maybe sauna, and then of course sleep. I think sleep in and of itself could just be an episode where people struggle with sleep so much, especially women in that like menopause, post-menopause period. Yeah, we'll definitely dive into that at some point too. But
yeah. And I do just want to, I know we talked a lot about the different foods and changes you can make, but the biggest thing is just making small, realistic changes that you will stick to. And then you will notice, okay, I am feeling better. I actually like to eat this. I actually can incorporate this into my daily life, and you will by far be so much more successful. The best way to lose weight is slowly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it doesn't even come down to weight. It's, if you are building muscle, it's more about how you feel and how you look in clothes and just how you see yourself and what ultimately what your goals are. And so it all comes down to the small things that you can change that will make a big impact overall, because actually dropping weight quickly is not good for you. It puts your body under a ton of stress and
not sustainable either.
It's not sustainable. And that actually has been proven to put you at increased risk for cancer as well, because it's a huge shift in your metabolism, in how your body
constant
functions.
Yo-yo.
Exactly. And so
it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Definitely.
It's going to take time and diligence and effort.
Definitely. Agreed. For sure. And so that's where really try to counsel patients on, I know it's discouraging that you're not dropping 5 pounds a week, but really good is like 0.5, 1 pound. Like you want to go slow. You're more likely to keep it off.
Exactly. And stick with it.
And the biggest thing too, I know that it's really sexy to drop weight quickly, and even like this whole Ozempic and Mounjaro and all these medications that say that you can lose a lot of weight quickly. I don't know how great that is.
And I think for the right person, it is great. It is a very specific situation, but also, why are you using it? You know, are you doing this, as, you know, Sally Joe, who's 170 pounds, who just wants to lose an extra 10 to 15?
Yeah. I hear a lot of, I'm pre-diabetic. It's like nobody cared that they were pre-diabetic until
this all came out.
The Ozempic came out.
Just for an example on that too, my dad, he was diagnosed with diabetes. Sorry, Dad, I'm calling you out on the pod. But Dad was diagnosed with diabetes like 2 years ago. His A1C was high, and I said, you should probably get started on medication because this obviously has been going on for a while. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do that. He ended up losing a lot of weight. He actually most recently just lost, don't get me wrong, he's eating like a bird, but like he put the effort in and he's put the work in and he's exercising and he's eating healthy, and he's lost 50 to 60 pounds, and he is no longer diabetic, and he's not even barely pre-diabetic.
That's awesome.
So it goes to prove, like, with effort, you can avoid these medications. And he was adamant he didn't want to be on one of these medications because they're also so new. Like, you don't know the long-term side effects of what these are going to cause as well too. But for the right person, someone really struggling, like they are good. But there's a lot of talk that can be done about that one.
A lot of talk. And that's where, and thankfully, with John, he changed his mind.
It's mindset.
He changed his mindset and his life or way of looking at things. I fear a lot of people look at the medication or fad diets even as a quick fix. I'm going to drop weight real quick and it's going to be fantastic. I am going to lose 50 pounds in 3 months for my cousin's wedding, something like that. But the biggest thing is changing your mind in the way that you look at food, the way that you look at exercise, and that's just what I fear overall.
Yeah, it's not a Band-Aid,
Not a Band-Aid.
You got to change your mindset to make the most realistic habits. So,
yeah.
But I think that's it for today.
Yeah, definitely a good start for a topic visit.
I think we want to let you know next episode we are going to have one of our awesome breast surgeons on as a guest, and she is going to basically be talking about breast cancer and the 411 on breast cancer. I'm not going to spoil too many details, but yeah,
she is a hoot. You will absolutely love her.
Amazing. But yeah, thanks for being here with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. See you next time.
The information that you hear on this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice. As always, please seek out personal care and advice from your medical team.